All right, let's rock and roll. Let's get into it. Let's go here. Game of Inches, episode 10. We have hit double digits here on episodes. It's been a fun ride so far, but we are definitely just getting going here. What's up, Jake? What's going on, man?
What's going on, buddy? Glad to be back. Lots to talk about. Episode 10. Before we hopped on the recording here, we were just chatting about all the things that we're striving to do this year and content wise. And there's a lot going on with Mayflower, and I'm super excited to be doing this with you, buddy. And I'm excited to be back to talk some sports.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. Like it's so exciting talking about the future and our plans, and just the consistency was the biggest thing that you and I preached when we started doing this together, and we wanted to do this. And here we are, 10 episodes in. It's becoming part of our week, and we're looking forward to just getting more people on, talking about different topics. And let's start things off, man. I think you have a pretty interesting topic, so let's hear about it.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to get your take on the MLB Hall of Fame and kind of like just the I guess cheating involved around the sport, right? There was an article a couple weeks ago, or I think it was last week, about Curt Schilling, former Red Sox pitcher, World Series winner, asking to be taken off the Hall of Fame ballot because of basically he's not going to get in. He's been on the ballot for a couple of years. He's had some, we'll call them political views that haven't sat well with most people that have seen them or heard about them. We won't really dive into them, but he's not going to get in. Clearly, it looks like this year he was up again. He didn't get in. You need 75% vote from the writers. You need 10 years, I think, accredited as an MLB journalist to be able to vote. And like, there's only so many spots, so they come up throughout various times. But besides the point. So basically, Schilling asked the MLB for them to take his name off of the ballot because he, this time of year, gets bashed every year for his political views and his beliefs and what he thinks. And he fully well knows he's not going to get in. But the MLB just for some reason refused to take his name off the ballot, which I find kind of funny because cheating and like personalities are kind of what made baseball. Like people don't really like watch or think about baseball for like, you know, like the sport. Like a lot of the mainstream attention that comes from baseball is through like the scandalous like cheating things, or like, you know, there was like a brawl on the field, like, you know, or like sometimes like a crazy highlight play, but like it's not too covered. And I just want to get like, I just kind of want to dive into like how I feel basically, because I played baseball my whole life. I love the game. I love the sport. It was my favorite summer sport. It's relaxing, you know, it's competitive, but in a relaxing kind of way. And as long as I've been watching baseball, I've known there's been some form of cheating going on, like whether that's been through steroids, and then like before there was like fixing games and people betting on games, and like that obviously is going to decide the outcome. And now with the Astros. So we're getting to a point in the MLB's history where a lot of these important moments for the MLB are going to be kind of blacked out and erased because these players aren't going into the Hall of Fame. You know, they're not going to, like, Barry Bonds is not going to get 75% of the MLB writers' votes to go into the Hall of Fame because they feel like he tarnished the game, when realistically he was probably the biggest draw baseball ever had. So like I find it weird, like when I think of the MLB Hall of Fame, and I forget who said it and they had a very good point, I think it should be looked at as like a museum where you put all the people in, you put the good players, you put the cheaters in, and you put in their plaque or in their bio like what they did. So like Barry Bonds, you can list off all the crazy stats he had, his on base percentage, the MLB like MVP awards, but at the end just be like he was found to use steroids during his time in the MLB. And let the person make a decision on how they feel about that, and they can decide for themselves whether they think he's a Hall of Famer or not. I just find baseball is you're gonna lose a lot. We're gonna lose a lot of baseball history coming up because of how many cheating accusations have been involved in the sport. And I get a lot of slack for this opinion, but you know, like, what do you think? Like, I just think cheating is, you know, kind of ingrained in the MLB and in the sport.
Yeah, a lot of good info though there, man. I think that you talked a lot, and you had definitely had some strong opinions about the Houston Astros cheating, right? And they got caught. Like it was actually a punishable thing. I mean, they barely got punished, but they got caught. But a point that you were continuously raising was that cheating has been in the game, you know. And when I had the opportunity to actually interview a reporter for the Korean Baseball League, um, he was pretty much just saying like, yeah, they're 100% used to be like fixed games, and pitchers would get paid off by guys that would pay them more than what their salary was, with these underground gambling rings, all that kind of stuff. So gambling and that kind of stuff and fixing and cheating and all that stuff is part of sports, but it's part of baseball. If it was hockey or, basketball, it's harder to really do that. But I mean, the Astros were, they were hitting a garbage can to tell somebody what the pitch coming was, what was coming. So to me, when I look at that, I'm right there with you. I think that's kind of just the era, right? That's how the game was being played. For somebody, I mean, obviously, anybody that was being disrespectful or saying things or doing things they shouldn't, I don't think they should be out there, obviously. But as far as just steroids, that kind of stuff, how many people were actually using them? I mean, PEDs were just a normal thing back then. There's no way that should, take somebody away from making that big push. So to get to the Hall of Fame mark, the question of should they continuously be, up for nomination and stuff like that, or to get in there, and then they don't. That's pretty interesting. Like, you were telling me all about it and what you were reading, and what I think it might be is just like, hey, this guy continuously deserves to be there, but then they have to vote, and like you said, they need 75%. So I don't know really what's going to change, but I don't blame them for asking, hey, take me off that. If you're not going to vote me in every single year, then what's the point? But I guess their point is they're saying, hey, like, you do deserve to be in there, but you have to get voted in, and that's kind of what my first impression, I guess, with the whole situation is that, one, I agree with you. The fact that you everyone cheats. Like, it's baseball, man. Like, they're stealing signs, like they're doing whatever they can to win. But for someone to not be able to get into that because of people's opinions, they might as well just take them off. I mean, do you think it's fair that they're just up there? Because like you said, they're getting bashed in the media spotlight. It's almost like they're set up to fail every year around this time.
Yeah, like, I don't think it's fair. Like, I think if Kurt Schilling asked to be taken off, like, he should just be off the ballot. Like, the MLB shouldn't, like, use this time of year to, like, get into the mainstream media, because, like, the MLB media is just going to have a field day on Kurt Schilling or Barry Bond or Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa or any of those guys that were really in that era, that were leaders in that era. And to me, it just goes back to the point, like, you brought up the Houston Astros, and my point wasn't that, like, cheating was, like, okay and what they did was okay. Like, to me, like, how everybody reacted was like they've never seen or heard of cheating in baseball before, which is crazy, because,
Yeah,
like, we literally were just 10
exactly.
years removed from, like, the steroid era, which was, like, baseball's most prominent time in the mainstream media. And I'm not condoning people using steroids or people cheating, but, like, that's what happened. Like, that was a part of their game. That's a part of their story. Like, not every story is going to have, like, like the pretty sunset and, like, it's sunny every day. And it's just not like that. Like, there's some dark times in the sport. And I feel like MLB has gone through some dark times. And the Astros, I think, are a little bit different than the steroid era, because the steroid era, there was a lot of people doing it. And, like, one person I'll shout out is Ken Griffey Jr., who never did PEDs, never did steroids, never got caught, and did all the things that he wanted to do in his career. That is a distinguishable factor, but I don't think that those people should be held out. And for the Astros, there was other teams linked in that report, but there was no obvious, evidence that they were doing what the Astros were doing or anything like that. But there was a report that a lot of teams do use when they're at home, not the same way the Astros were, their film room to dissect signs for the next game or for, like, that next relief pitcher. Like, the way that the camera was set up, obviously from center field, like, facing down to the mount, like, that's not allowed at all. Mm-hmm. But, like, you are allowed to have cameras set up to watch film for batting practice, right? To watch your stance and watch that stuff. And sometimes you're going to catch signs in that, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I feel like teams are doing that anyways, just Astros were doing it on a bigger scale. To me, I just don't want it to take away from someone like Jose Altuve, who is having a Hall of Fame career. And in 10 years, we're going to be having the same conversation that we had about Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire about, well, they cheated, they shouldn't be in, but they were also an important fabric of the sport. And to me, that bothers me, because I hold something like the NFL Hall of Fame higher than the MLB Hall of Fame. And in the NFL, like, I feel like it's more of a team sport. It's harder to be excellent. There's more turnover in the league. There's just a lot more variables. Like, I just hold it in a little bit higher of esteem. Where the MLB Hall of Fame, I just think of it, like I said, more of a museum where you can just kind of go and make your own judgments on players, because cheating has been in the fabric since like the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, look, I had a conversation with someone yesterday about what the word MVP means, like in NBA or in the NHL. And the reason why I bring it up is because think about it like this. I mean, Leon Draisaitl in the NHL was MVP last year. Look how his team did. Look at how they did. They got knocked out to the Blackhawks, and like certain people are in the running. Connor McDavid's in the running to be the MVP this year, but look how the team is doing. And the reason why I bring that up is that you look at it and ask yourself, without these PEDs, without the cheating scandal with the Astros, how good would Altuve still have been? How good would all these superstars still have been? And if the answer in your head when you're thinking about this and listening to this is, well, they still are great baseball players, then they deserve a spot. That's kind of the way I think about it, right?
And
that's what you have to ask yourself.
The perfect example of that, dude, is Barry Bonds. So like when Barry Bonds was on the Pirates, like he was still one of the, like he won an MVP in the Pirates. He had like, I think like a top 5 all-time on base percentage just from playing in Pittsburgh before he went to the Giants. And then like the Giants is where you could see his neck kind of swelled up and he turned like 280 pounds and just like brick house that could just crush a ball like into like the stratosphere. But
he
like
turned
that's
into
a good
tight
point.
end.
Yeah, like, and then that's a really good point. I do think that like if you can distinguish, like, maybe before the steroids or after the steroids, you weren't the same player, or there was a noticeable drop off or dip in how you played. I think that's definitely fair. But for Altuve, like that cheating scandal is one season. Like that shouldn't mark his whole career, in my opinion. Like that's what I guess I'm trying to get at with the Astros. It's not so much that like as an organizational thing, it was definitely wrong. As a personal like player thing, it was wrong. I just feel like that one blemish on Altuve's career might hold him out of the Hall of Fame, and I don't think it should.
Well, we'll definitely have to see. We'll be doing this podcast when that happens, and we'll be a little bit older than that. But
yes,
I'm looking forward to see where the company is at that point. But no, it's a good point. It's a good topic to touch on here on the show to kind of mix things up. But it sounds like Jake and I kind of share these exact same opinions. And it's to your point, Jake. The Hall of Fames are different in every league, and what qualifies you to get in there. Before we change topics here, I want to elaborate on what you were saying about the museum. About kind of more so it's like just kind of example and showing what these guys meant to the game, and what each of them kind of did for the game, did for their own teams. And like you said, put that little note, put that little message. Hey, this guy was involved in the era where the Astros smashed a trash can, but don't take him out of the Hall of Fame,
I totally agree with that.
That's kind of what I'm looking at.
Dude, definitely. I think definitely that's 100% what should happen, because the NBA Hall of Fame is nowhere in any esteem compared to like even the MLB Hall of Fame or the NFL Hall of Fame or the NHL Hall of Fame. Like they just like pretty much let anybody in because they had not anybody, but they have a smaller sample size. So like, they're a little bit more inclusive in the NBA Hall of Fame, where like the NFL and clearly the MLB now is a little bit more exclusive, where they don't really want everybody, or they only want like the people that like they like. And I don't think that the Hall of Fame should be a place where me as a person or you as a person or the journalist voting should have an opinion on like said person. Like we should only take into like what they did during baseball, the time that it was going on, what was going on during that time, and that play a factor, not whether he was doing steroids or not, because everybody was pretty much. And the people that weren't, like they can hold their head high and be like, yeah, I never did steroids. And you might not get into the Hall of Fame, but that was just something that was going on during that time. And I don't think that we should exclude that from the MLB history, because it's an important note.
Yeah, for all of those guys that didn't use steroids, maybe they would have been a lot better if they did.
I didn't want to say that. Yeah, I didn't want to put that message out there, because I don't condone the steroids and I don't condone the cheating.
I'm just joking.
But it's a valid point though. Like, if
it was out there. Everybody was doing it. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like NHL with the flex on your stick or the curve on your stick. Like there's like illegal, hockey,
Yeah.
like curves on your blade, right? And
Yeah,
like
definitely.
you look at Crosby for a long time in his career, he almost had like a flat blade or like a little bit of a curve. Like he's never really been one to have like a crate. So like I'm not saying it's that comparison, but it's kind of cool because you can look at certain players and like how they're taking advantage of it. And I've
Yeah, look
watched
at
like some videos online and like some guys, like even like you look at Line A has an insane curve on it. Like his flex is crazy. His
have you
curve is
seen Ovechkin?
ridiculous. Yeah, Ovechkin's. Yeah, I was gonna say him as
Ovechkin
well.
has a
It's
crazy
nuts.
one.
Yeah, it works for him.
Yeah, that's he can't slap shot the puck really. Well, he can. He can one time it, but like you really notice like most of Ovi's shots are wrist shots and snapshots because like that's the way his curve is, and that's what gives him that torque and that power. And that's a good point, buddy. And like it's the same thing as like like when they ban like in the MLB like ban like producer Luke said like pine tar. It's like it gives you a better grip on the bat, like or like maybe not for pitchers because it gives you a better like grip on like the ball. Well, sorry, they banned it for pitchers on the ball, but it's like if everybody can do it and everybody gets a little bit of a better grip, then like who cares?
Yeah.
Might make the game a little bit more interesting. MLB is like dying anyways. Like I love it, but like as a mainstream sport, it's dying.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like I saw games that I last year was probably the most I've ever watched the MLB. Like I've always watched the Jays, but I watched every game, and may or may not have been because of gambling purposes. But if you look at it, they were trying to make things go faster, right? With the amount of times they're allowing pitcher changes, right? It was you had to face 3 batters minimum, and then the extra innings started with a player on second base. But even then, the games were still going ridiculously long.
Yeah,
So then the old time baseball fans are saying, why are we changing our game? Like, why are you putting a guy on second base to start extra innings? And then the new generation is like, yeah, like speed this game up. Like, I love baseball, but I can't like watch for 6 hours. So that's
yeah.
kind of cool. It's kind of cool. We'll talk about that more closer to baseball season, but right after this, we'll just go over some NHL and NBA action, and that will be it for episode 10 of Game of Inches.
Munchie's Convenience is located at 1840 Vernon Street that specializes in exotic snacks and sodas. They are also Atlantic Lottery certified for all of your lotto and gambling needs. Check them out on Instagram at HFX Munchies to see all their stock.
All right, we're back here, episode 10 of the Game of Inches podcast, powered by Mayflower Sports. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube to share this video, hit the like button, hit that bell on the subscribe. Make sure you get notified every time we release a brand new video. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every single podcast network is where you can find us. Let's talk some NBA. We're going to talk some NBA and then talk some NHL action as well. We'll start with the Eastern Conference here, Jake. Right now we're seeing the Sixers, Bucks, Nets, Celtics, Pacers, Hornets, Hawks, and our Raptors holding on to the 8th seed.
Come on, Raps. That's what I like to see, baby. Fight back. Came up with that big win the other night against Brooklyn. You love to see that. Man,
KD
the East is
getting
kind of
pulled.
yeah, man. That was
You
some
see
weird
that?
shit to be honest. That was I don't know.
That was some Justin Turner shit right there.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. That was
I
a
just
little
don't get it,
fishy.
man. I don't want to get political, but I just don't get that. He's
Yeah,
already played the game. He's already been out there with the boys. And if he had COVID and they already have it, why pull him in the third quarter?
somebody explained this to me in a good way because I was with me and somebody were talking to somebody else about how we felt and it was similar to that. And they said basically they were like, it's all about minimizing. So like say if like you got like 13 people sick and they pulled you and that saved another like 15 people from getting sick, obviously those 13 people that you got sick can still infect people, which
Yeah.
it is what it is. But like I feel like they're just trying to like minimize it. But like that was just a weird situation. I don't understand how you don't catch that pregame. And you're right. Like if he's already playing the game, you like pull him. And then it's like, well, like shouldn't the game just entirely be kind of like stopped? Because like now like we don't know who has it. Like these people are flying out, like maybe like they're flying out tomorrow. So like there's just a lot of like what ifs and
Well, when
like
did Justin Turner get pulled? He got pulled in like what, the 6th or 7th inning of the World Series, and then he leaves, goes into the locker room, then comes back out with a mask on.
yeah.
And then huddles up with that was weird too.
His was because he got a positive and then a false positive. So that's where like the testing comes in. It's a little fishy. So like maybe that's something similar happened with KD, but yeah, overall fishy situation. But since we're on the topic of them, we've talked about them a little bit, man. What is going on with the Nets on a 3-game losing streak? Like, and like that, and it just shows how bad the Eastern Conference is. They're still in third.
Yeah.
Like the East is trash this year, man. Like, I don't know. Like, it gives me hope for the Raps. I was bashing and saying like we're done, and then have a quick look at the standings, and you're like, shit, man. Like, we're really only 2 games out of third place. Like, let's go. There's still hope. We can still secure that home court advantage and still do our thing. But Brooklyn needs to do something before the trade deadline, or they're going to be in serious trouble. Like, they cannot defend a lick. And I know they look like they're kind of taking the Clippers approach to me, where like regular season's kind of like, let's just get through the motions. Let's just make sure, maybe we get home court for the first 2 rounds or the first round, and then we'll go from there. But we saw how that played out with the Clippers. And I'm actually kind of worried for the Nets, like maybe if they slip to like 4 and they got to play Indiana or like someone like the Raps who maybe climb up, or so, like they could have a serious tough road to the finals, man. And I
definitely,
I don't know what they need to, like, they obviously need to fix defense, but I don't know like where they're going to start, because they're up against the cap and they don't really have the pieces to do anything.
I don't even think it's as much like picking up new people. I mean, they don't have that much, defensive players, but right now it's just, I feel like we're at Oxford playing hoops, Sunday hoops at Oxford, it's just literally pick up basketball. It's ISO, because the fact is they have the talent to do that. James Harden can take anybody to school, Kyrie has incredible handles. Obviously, we know how great of a scorer KD is. So that's kind of what it seems like their mentality is. And we always talk about how much sports is just in your head, just the mentality of it. And the fact is, I don't think these guys are going into any of these games with any nerves, and I'm not saying as a pro athlete you should have nerves, but you should have that will to win kind of thing. Not like, we're going to go out there and get it done. And so to see Kyrie Irving say, like, we're playing like an average team right now, and with the scores we have, we're not average. It's like, all right, dude, then do something about it. Like, get your shit together. You know what I mean? Like, stop talking about it. So it's weird to me looking at that, because it's like, we were just praising, or at least I was, about how Harden was passing the ball, and these guys were being so unselfish. And now it's pretty much just like, get up the court, pass it to the wing, everyone clear the fuck out. And if you better, like, and there's no rebounding either. There's literally no rebounding. Like, DeAndre Jordan's looked good. But mostly off the pick and roll and stuff like that. But like, if you notice, there aren't that many second chance opportunities with them. It's a shot, and then it's just like lazy back on defense. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on Brooklyn. But I don't know. I think they'll be fine. 76ers, they stay atop of the East, 18-7 for them, 11-2 at home. Philly continues to be good at home. They've always played better at home. Their home split's pretty good. Away, 7-5. But I gotta say, man, because I'm a huge basketball fan, but I've always made it clear I actually enjoy watching hockey more. It's just, I've always said this, at least on TV. But I'm pumped up to see how tight it is. I mean, I understand, Jake, you say that the East isn't very good, but we look at from the 3rd spot until the 8th, we have 14-12 Brooklyn, 12-11 Boston, 12-12 Indiana, 12-13 Charlotte, 11-13 Raps. Like, that's awesome to see for the league, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's some parity there, I guess. I guess that is a good thing. Everybody likes to see parity and, no team run away with it, I guess. But Milwaukee and the 76ers clearly look like they're running away with it. In terms of the standings, though, I'm a little surprised about the Heat down at 10-14, man. I know they've had a lot of COVID and a lot of injuries. Hopefully they can turn it around. But report today that actually, we were almost going to skip over this when we were talking about the Raps there. Kyle put his house up for sale, man. What the hell?
Yeah, I saw that. All the reports are coming out. This is kind of like what happened with Tom, when everybody's like, nah, he's not leaving. He put his house up. But there has been reports in the past where people do that and they don't end up leaving. But it sounds like he's a piece they're willing to move. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know. I've also heard some rumblings about Andre Drummond. We need a better big man. I'd be so sick to land him, Jake. But I got to dap up my guy, Chris Boucher. Boucher has been outstanding. My cousin was telling me that I didn't even know, like, really the full story about Boucher, but like, he had it tough, man. Like he didn't even pick up basketball until late in life. He dropped out of high school. He was like on the verge of homelessness, man. Picked up basketball and just started to like just absolutely kill it. Was very, very good at it. Was, you know, noticeable from coaches. And, you know, I love a good comeback story in life, but I love it when people say like, yeah, he's too thin. He's too skinny, you know. It doesn't matter because he's getting blocks. He's strong enough to be out there. He leads the league in 3-pointers blocked because he goes and closes out and people think there's no way he's getting there in time. And he just, you know, blocks it out of bounds. It'd be a lot more fun if fans were actually there for that ball to just go into the fans. But got to give credit to him. OG has been solid. And I think Siakam's starting to come around a little bit.
Yeah, he's looked really good, man. In the last 2 games, he's really stepped it on. I think back-to-back 30-point performances he had. So you love to see that. You said something about Drummond there, and then the wheels got turning. And if they trade Kyle Lowry for fucking Drummond, dude, I am gonna lose my shit. I'll lose my mind, dude. I'll lose my mind. That would be the smallest, probably, backcourt in history, and Kyle Lowry and Kyrie Irving. But Kyle's a dog on the defensive end, right? And people forget that, and that makes me worried about us. Like, if we're willing to ship out probably the de facto leader in our dressing room to try and go in a new direction. And I know that's probably a decision between him and the franchise, and there's outside factors that play into this, whether we just want him there or not. But
yeah,
I hope we can hang on to him, man. But to kind of segue into another player I know you really want to talk about, and I don't mind talking about him because I was pretty high on him out of the draft, and a couple people in the group chat, we won't say who, were dogging him real hard. They were not at all. But LaMelo Ball, man, this guy's looking like he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, no problem.
Yeah, he's leading all the rookies in every stat, whether it's advanced or just basic points, assists, steals, blocks, whatever it might be. And people said, yeah, there's no way you could bet on this guy to be the Rookie of the Year because he's not starting. Well, you know what? Good for him. He sat on the bench, came off the bench, earned his starting role. He started in some games now. He's dropping buckets, and you know what he is? He's dripping confidence right now.
Yeah.
And you know, I love watching his interviews, Jake, because he's humble in like a really funny way. Like he's like the way he answers questions is just like he's just so happy to be there. He's just like so excited, and he also he sounds just like he's like so appreciative to be in the NBA. But he acts like he's not surprised. Like he's exactly where he thought he would be. He's exactly where he felt like he belonged, and you know, to see him just pulling up for 3, to see him crossing up, you know, like top elite level point guards in this league is pretty sick. I mean, to see him step back on his own brother was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, man. And the one thing that I'll say is a lot of people give, and rightly so, because he is the dad. A lot of people talk a lot of shit about LeVar, and a lot of people also heap a lot of praise on LeVar because, you know, he had 2 kids that made it to the NBA and 1 kid that, you know, made it to a practice squad 10-day contract, which is still a big feat because, like, guys play for that for their whole life to get a 10-day and don't get it. So, but I also think LaMelo's had the luxury of Lonzo being in the league because Lonzo is a lot different than LaMelo, and he's a lot different than LeVar. Lonzo to me seems a little bit more reserved. He might be a little bit funnier behind closed doors when he feels comfortable with the boys. But like when he's out on the court and like he's doing press conferences and he's talking or like even when we've seen clips with him just like talking to like LaMelo about like everyday life, about it being in the league and before he got drafted and stuff, like it's all business. And I think that, like, that has really benefited LaMelo because he's got to learn the business before he even got there. He's got someone to show him like, you know, these are the things you should be doing. These are the things you shouldn't be doing. Like, and these are the things LeVar can't tell LaMelo, or even if he is, LaMelo might be like, yeah, well, like you never played in the NBA. So like, you know, let me handle it. And, you know, he might not be like thinking that, but like subconsciously he might be like, you know, like he's never played in the NBA. Like, what does he know? So I think he's benefited from Lonzo a lot. And I also think he's benefited from LeVar for giving him that swagger, that confidence, that arrogance to be like, you know what, I deserve to be here. I'm a really good player. I should have been the first overall pick. Like, I'm not surprised at what I'm doing. I'm not surprised that I'm going to be Rookie of the Year because coming out of the draft, he was easily the most talented player. It was just whether the competition he played was good enough and what type, like almost his physical build, like what type of position was he going to play? Was he going to be like a taller point guard? Was he going to be like, you know, an average, just slim build 2 guard? But I love what he's doing, man. I think that a lot of people were hating on him, and it's nice to see someone, prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, and he'll get bigger. He will grow in mass. We've seen it with all kinds of players. And yeah, to your point, the biggest thing that was talked about was like, will he be able to make the transition? You hear that a lot in hockey from like the European side, KHL to the NHL, and he looks like he's just comfortable. Like I said, he's settling in. He's good. And to go back with what you were saying about how he is with the media and that kind of stuff, he doesn't fall for any traps. Like they always try and bait him into like saying stuff, and he's just like, I just like basketball, man. I'm just happy to like play. He's like, just want the team to do well. Like, he always just says like, and he'll smile and be like, yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for asking, or like whatever. Like he just literally loves to play the game. So I find that pretty cool, and looking to see how he can impact the game on different aspects, because everyone kind of said before Lonzo was just a passer, right?
Yeah.
So now you're kind of seeing like this guy LaMelo can prove to be, yeah, you know what? My team needs me to score. Okay. My team needs me to set up Bismack for like as many points as he can get. Sure, I'll do that, And you mentioned that, he could definitely thank Lonzo. I think that, I saw a pretty good, actually, little mini documentary on YouTube. He actually has lots to thank Jello for as well, because Lonzo's quite a bit older than them. So, or not too much, but he was kind of on a different path, and Jello and him were in Lithuania together. Jello joined his JBA team, and without Jello, they actually were horrible. Jello ended up dropping like 50 points for them. Like he went off. So like he kind of helped rebound them a little bit. Like LaMelo was in a really weird part of his career when he wasn't allowed to, when he wasn't going to play college, and when everything happened with high school and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, everyone's kind of played a factor. And I think that the big word to use, I thought, was subconscious. Every day in our lives, like we all like subconsciously do things or think things. And LaMelo's kind of just been along for the ride. Think of this guy was across the world, man. He was in Australia. Like it's pretty sick about what he's experienced. But let's touch on the West here real quick, and then we'll get into the NHL.
Yeah,
but
just
right
before
now,
we move. Sorry, buddy. I was going to say, just before we move on, I just had a quick thought. And it's just, it could be just like a quick yes or no, or however you feel like answering it. But to me, I feel like I get a lot of a Russell Westbrook out of LaMelo, but more finesse instead of power. Like he can do all the scoring, he can do all the passing, he can do all the rebounding, but he might not necessarily bring as much energy as Russ. But like some people have discredited Russ for like almost like trying to do too much sometimes, and that actually goes against him. Where LaMelo's a little bit more finesse, and he kind of lets the game come to him, and he kind of like picks his spots where he wants to do what. But I think that's a pretty good comparison. Just besides, LaMelo's a little bit more of a finesse player, and Russ is a little bit more of a bowl player, power player.
I could agree with that, but I think that the decision making is a little bit different. Like you said, I think that Russ tries to create for himself to be more of a scorer, whereas LaMelo will pick his spots, but he's still, I would say he's still pass first. Wouldn't you agree? Or
yeah,
no?
Definitely. I think he's honestly a dual threat. I think it's both on any given night. It depends how he's feeling like at this point, because like we can see him go out there and drop a bunch of assists, or we can go there and see him, get buckets, or both.
Speaking of Westbrook, do you know that statistically, like right now with the Wizards, that they're just as good without him? Like they're actually like almost playing better as a team without him. And then I saw somebody talking about a comparison that look at Mike Trout, right? He's a guy that's considered to be the best. I know I'm kind of comparing sports a lot tonight, but he's considered to be the best in the league, right? MVP caliber guy. You know that they pretty much have the same record in games that Mike Trout's not out there?
Yeah.
Like how crazy is that, man? That's a whole new debate topic. That's a whole new topic. But it's pretty cool to think about that stuff, man. The stat patters, those guys that are, putting up numbers, but how much is that impacting? Any thoughts for you on the West, Jake? I think it's we're seeing the Jazz, Lakers, Clippers, the Suns, though. Our guy Ox, his team's there in the 4th spot.
Yeah, man. Honestly, the West is tight as shit all the way from 5 to 14. So they're separated by, I think, 3 games. So, that's pretty much half the conference is separated by 3 games. So it's going to be a dogfight. Really interested in the Jazz. They're up there at the top. Didn't really have them up there. I wasn't really huge on them. I do like D. Mitch. not the biggest fan of the Jazz. I think they're kind of having another like nugget season where you're going to have the regular season success, but you're probably not going to win very much.
Mm-hmm.
The Suns are looking good. The Chris Paul factor, man, we talked about that the last time we talked about the Suns, what it's like to have a winner on your team, what it's like to have a guy that's going to go out there and, you know, give everything he's got. He has all the experience. He's played in different markets. He's played in playoff games. He's played with superstars. He's played with young guys. So they're a really intriguing story too. And then shout out our boy Harry that loves the UFC. His Kings are right in the mix too right now in the 9 seed at 12-12. So
they're competing. They're competing with everyone.
Yeah, man. There's a bunch of storylines in the West that we can dive into, but I just think it's the overall tightness, man. Like, I honestly couldn't give you a top 8 if we were to do a playoff prediction right now. Like, I couldn't give you a single clue on who's going to make it because at every point throughout this season, these teams at some point have looked good. And like G State's down in 8th place, man. Like San Antonio was garbage last year and they're in 6th.
Yeah.
Like
they've looked good, man. They've been consistent. They've been real consistent.
That's what you get with Pop, man. You know, you get that leadership, that consistency, and he's got that veteran lineup with a little mix of youth in there with like Murray and those guys. So they got a little thing going on, man. I've been paying a lot more attention to the West in terms of viewing and watching just because I feel like the matchups are a little bit better. The players out there, I feel like there's a lot more kind of like parity between the teams. Like, you know, Dallas is all the way down in 14, but they got Luka and Porzingis. Like they're struggling. But then you can look all the way up and we can see Utah, who most teams people probably had them at, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all the way at number 1 competing with the Lakers and the Clippers for the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so cool to look at, man. Like looking at these standings right now, that I was checking out the Denver schedule coming up here for them and looking at who they're playing. They're playing OKC. They got a spot against the Cavs, but then they play the Lakers and the Celtics. Like right now, there's no easy games. There really aren't. Like, I mean, there's 1 or 2 maybe, obviously the bottom feeders, but there aren't really any easy games, and it's cool to see any given night what's going to happen. You mentioned the Pop factor. Obviously, I love talking about that as well, Coach Pop, and what I love about that team is they're always just so well-rounded. I mean, we all know our guy DeMar is there, but there's just going to be a great team effort. It's kind of old school basketball, which I like. I like Utah.
Big fundamentals.
I'm not trying. Yeah, exactly. Mr. Fundamental, Tim Duncan himself. I'm not trying to just hop on this bandwagon, but I like Utah, man. I like teams that can win in high-scoring fashion and low-scoring fashion. They can do both right now. So that kind of really, really stands out to me. Interested to see what happens here with that middle of the pack. So the Blazers, the Spurs, and the Nuggets. I feel like those 3 are going to get jumbled around a lot.
Yeah, honestly, I think that I think 2 of either the Blazers, the Spurs, or the Suns aren't going to make the playoffs. If that was my like take from this, like looking, I feel like Dallas, they've had a lot of injuries. They got to turn it around at some point. I think they got to get it going. I really like what they have. They've just been kind of down in the dumps with, you know, Porzingis starting out injured, and then they've had a lot of injuries recently and COVID stuff. So I think they are going to make hopefully a surge up the table. Houston, the more they play together, I think they've incrementally got better and better and better. So I think they could make a push. I know the Kings have looked competitive, so you never know if they can sustain this the whole year. Halliburton and Fox look like, I won't say the best backcourt in basketball because we got Harden and Kyrie, and we got, you know, Tatum and friggin' Jaylen Brown, and then all
me
those
and you
boys.
at Tremont.
Exactly, man. Like there's so many good ones, but for young backcourts right now, like they're up there for, you know, 1 or 2 in terms of youthfulness, excitingness, like potential. A lot of people had questions about Halliburton when the Kings drafted him, but he looks like the perfect pairing with De'Aaron Fox.
You know, I find it funny that in the NBA, and I'm not going to say every player, obviously, but usually you'd think like mental weaknesses come from younger players. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you're new, you're a rookie, you get frustrated. Yeah. Right now, it seems like we're seeing the mental weaknesses being from the older players.
Yeah.
The vets, I mean, Halliburton, these guys are just like every night, they're out here ready to score. They're out here ready to play ball. And the older players are deciding if they want to show up that night. They're deciding if they're going to pack it in if they're down 12.
Yeah.
These younger guys, they're ready to rock, man. Like, I've really have noticed that. Like, and that's kind of impressive, the fact that no matter who they're playing, and it's like that same, like, dog eat dog world. Like, this Kings team, shout out to our guy Harry, they don't care who they are playing. They're going to compete until the buzzer. If they're down 20 or if they're down 2.
Yeah, they're a fun team to watch, man. I've actually been tuning into them a little bit. And for Harry's sake, like, we'll give a shout out to Harry and his sports team. So Harry likes the Kings, the Jags, the Sens, and I feel like I'm missing one other team. And he likes the Blue Jays. So we'll exclude the Blue Jays because they've had some success in being in the playoffs. Harry has the 3 worst possible teams that you could like in terms of hoping to ever see a championship ever. So, like, the Jags aren't winning. You know for a fact the Sacramento Queens are never winning anything. So at this point, for my buddy's sake, I just want to see them make the playoffs and just have some sort of incremental success. Like, this guy every year is in the group chat. Like, I got high hopes. We could do this or we could do that. And just one time, I'd like my guy not to have to eat his words. Like, just, let him live a little. Let him get hyped to see De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton get swept in the first round. Like, he would be hyped for that, just to see that. And, if the Sacramento Kings could do that for my boy, I'd really appreciate that.
I'd like Gardner Minshew to not be his favorite player.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like.
Trevor Lawrence now, man.
Trevor Lawrence, yeah.
Law, Harry's going to have to get that sunshine haircut, let that flow grow out, dye it blonde, and he could be Trevor Lawrence.
We'll see how that goes. All right, let's talk some NHL just right after a short break. The Full Circle Realty team specializes in commercial, residential, and property management by taking a distinctive entrepreneurial approach to help clients and customers find their next investment. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate in 2021, contact the team today at info@fullcirclerealty.ca to learn more. All right, guys, let's talk some NHL real quick. We'll go through a few of these divisions, go through a few teams that are really not looking good, and a few teams, well, that are looking pretty good. I want to start with a topic that Jake was just mentioning to me off air, was about these teams making up for the missed time with the COVID protocols. Jake, we're checking the schedules on our phones online, and it's like, wow, this schedule is pretty short today. And all of a sudden we're seeing 2 or 3 games not happening. Looking at your Colorado Avalanche, man, I'm sure you missed watching them play. And I think they said it's going to be like a 2-week or at least a 1 or 2 week stretch that they're leaving for these makeup games. So it's kind of weird. It'll be weird between the regular season and the playoffs, how they kind of do that. But we're starting to see COVID take over, man. And I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah, man. It's weird because, like, the NFL was the only league this year that got through the whole season without canceling a game. And, in the NHL right now, we're seeing like 4 or 5 teams right now, all of their games getting canceled for like 2 or 3 series. So like it's getting kind of dicey here, and it's getting to a point now where, like, I don't know, like, if all of the games are going to be made up. So like it's going to get to a point where, like, if you get your games in, that's almost more beneficial than not getting them in, right? Because at least you still have the chance to get the points. Like, I'm just looking at the thing, like, the Chicago Blackhawks have played 14 games and they're in 3rd place, but Carolina and Dallas have only played 10 and they're in 6th and 7th respectively in the conference. Like, if Chicago somehow maintains those 4 games and Dallas and Carolina can't make up those games, like, and maybe they're within that 4-point threshold or whatever it is, how does the NHL justify to those teams that missed out because maybe they didn't leave enough time, or they weren't, the rapid testing wasn't good enough, or the protocols weren't good enough? I just think we're getting into a sticky situation here where we're starting to see a lot of games canceled. And the later we get into games getting canceled, and if we see, maybe Dallas get another COVID thing where they have to be out for another 2 weeks, and, like, realistically, now you're not going to make up a month's worth of games. It's gonna be kind of dicey for the NHL, and I'm not really sure what's gonna happen, man.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I said I'm not really surprised, and I don't think any NHL fan should be, because first of all, it's not to get into politics, but they're being super safe with it. I mean, you mentioned the fact that the NFL got through everything. There's a reason for that. I mean, obviously they were very precautious. They had those, like, the tags they were carrying around everywhere with them, but we can say that some of the quarantine was a little bit less than what the NHL teams are going through. I can say that with confidence. It was less. I mean, we saw what was it, Baltimore and Pittsburgh get rescheduled 3 or 4 days. I don't know what changed then
Yeah.
in those 3 or 4 days. I mean, if they had COVID, they had it.
Yeah.
If not, they didn't. But look, I think they'll make it up, and I think that it's definitely an advantage, though, to your point, with these teams that are just going along with their business. Imagine if you're on a hot run right now and you have to play, a team like the Minnesota Wild. And it's like, oh shit, we were playing sick and now we're just not playing.
Yeah.
That messes with your mojo. That messes with your rhythm. I'm not liking that. You're just sitting at home. I don't care if you're a young player, you're an older player. You want to get in that groove. I just wanted to touch on that Central Division. You were talking about them, and you asked the group about the Panthers. Not really being talked about as much, and they're 7-1-2, man.
Yeah,
They're
they
they're looking good. Yeah, they look good. Like, the fact is that I always say this is like, you can only play who's in front of you, but they've played the crappy Red Wings, the Predators, who just suck right now. They can't score.
Yeah,
Their PK is horrible. And then they caught the Blue Jackets in a really, bad part of their year, which is just the start of their year. We're about 25% the way through the season now, I think, for some teams anyway.
Yeah.
Ish. So, you look at this, and I know Luke's going to like hearing this, but there's no real shock with the Lightning. I mean, this should have been a back up the Brinks truck and just pour your money in on the Lightning to win this division, because this is just a lock. I mean, they're 9-1-1. They've won games that they probably stopped trying in the second or third period. Literally, their power play looks outstanding. They beat the Nashville Predators on Tuesday night 6-1. They kept on pouring it on. It almost looked like a joke to them.
Shout out Tampa Bay, money line and -1.5. You love to see that.
Let's go. Every single game, man. Keep making that money. The Jackets with Patrick Laine, they're already having issues with apparently he was talking back to an assistant coach. I don't want to dive into that. I'm tired of hearing about Tortorella and the Jackets. But
I used to have respect for Torts, but as his career's gone on, it's kind of, slowly dwindled away, in my opinion. If I say anything about Torts, chances are it's just the gist of it's going to be he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm in a good mood today, so I don't feel like talking about Torts.
How bad are the Vancouver Canucks right now? How bad is this team defensively? Leafs score 15 goals in 3 games against them, make it look easy. The Habs light them up. Every team seems to be able to compete against them. And they've got so much talent. They give up to Foley. Foley lights them up like crazy. They give up Markstrom. Markstrom plays a great game. Like a great season so far. And Thursday, they're actually playing each other, the Flames and the Canucks. I mean, what's your take here? Not on the top half of the North Division, but the bottom half, man.
Yeah, I just want to say that the top 4 in no particular order was the way I had it, and just putting that out there.
Let's go.
Like to say that, But anyways, besides that, no, Vancouver started out pretty good, man. They looked all right. They were getting that depth scoring from guys like Tyler Mott, and Elias Pettersson was looking good, and Hughes was looking good, and they were looking pretty decent to start. But now they're 6-10. They're looking pretty leaky on the back end. I don't think that their defense is really going to be able to hold up in this division. This division seems like it's a pretty high scoring one for the most part. And yeah, I almost expected this from Vancouver. I know they've had a couple good years, but I've never been big on the way they play, and I've never been big on kind of the way their team's built. They don't really have any notable guys besides Bo Horvat, and now they have Pettersson and Hughes, but I feel like they lack a lot of depth names, and they just don't have that kind of star power that'll ever will them to anything. So
they're a shittier Leafs. They're just a way shittier Leafs. They have a bunch of talent, but no depth.
I agree with that comparison 100% actually, and that's actually, you kind of put that there for me, so I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, you were saying it. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were.
I couldn't get the words out, and you put that right there for me. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. But no, man, the Ottawa Senators suck. They made us eat our words the other night, but I don't really care about that because they still friggin' suck. They might not lose 10 or 15 games at any point throughout the year, but they're not looking good. Calgary, they're very hit or miss. I feel like them and Winnipeg are just going to battle it out for the last spot.
Yeah.
I think Edmonton's kind of got on a roll, and now that they have Mike Smith back, they have a little bit of a better goalie situation. The big thing for the Edmonton Oilers is the stat that you said about, or it was either you or Harry or Shellman or one of the boys, but he has 27 points and somehow he's in -1. Like, that leads the NHL for points, and this guy's a negative, plus minus, which is, to me, that doesn't even make sense. Like, how can you lead the league in the NHL? How can you lead the league in points, but also pretty much be on the ice more times than you've been on the ice for goals? Like, it's a weird situation in Edmonton.
It's the same old story with them, man. Like, we saw them play the Sens Tuesday night, and they had 3 goals from defensemen. I know that's not really the secondary scoring, so to speak, that they're looking for, but shit, if I'm an Oilers fan, I'm pumped.
He'll take it from anywhere.
Yeah, like, honestly, man, like, they won a game, and the score wasn't a blowout, but without McDavid, without Draisaitl, without that top 6 really doing anything, I'm happy if I'm seeing that, and I'm an Oilers fan, honestly. So interesting to follow with them. I still don't think their defense is that great, so it'll be funny to see what happens with them when they start playing in some really fast-paced games again. The Ottawa Senators, I want to say this: they can pass the puck around. They can transition from one end of the ice to the other, but they don't have like that grit. As a Montreal fan, that's pretty much what we've been built on until we got, some goal scoring now, finally winning these 2-3-1 games by scoring a goal from Gallagher right in the, in the crease and stuff like that. Every shot has no traffic. No players are parking themselves in front of the net. The Senators have grit in the toughness aspect, but not in a goal scoring aspect. It doesn't matter if you can have fourth line grit. You need to have like top line grit, somebody to park yourself in front of the net on the power play, because right now, like, their power play is pass, shot right into the chest of the goalie because nobody's in front.
Yeah, and honestly, I think a guy like that hasn't been playing, I'm pretty sure Logan Brown, like, he kind of fits that build, and he's been scratched quite a bit for them. So I don't really know what's going on, but for them, we all I like to hate on them because I know a couple guys that are Sens fans and they suck, so it's just kind of funny. But they have a really good young core, and they're going to be building some stuff there sometime soon, in the next couple of years. But for right now, I think for them, like, they're already out of it. They won 2 games. They've lost 11. So for me, it's just play the young guys. Let's build those good habits. Let's get those tendencies down. Let's start to build that locker room culture, because things are a lot easier when you're winning. Like, nothing gets worse than seeing the same guys every day and you're on a shitty team and you have to see them every day. You start to, like we said, subconsciously, like, sometimes you start to resent certain guys for no reason. And it's just because you're losing. You're just like, fuck, I hate losing. And we're here every day losing. So if they're able to get through this stretch this season, where they're getting beat up a lot of games and they're just building good habits and they're not quitting on any games, like the game against the, was it Edmonton? They went down and then they kind of fought back a little bit and then they ended up losing. But like, that to me was cool. Like, you were down pretty big. Like, you still fight. You might not win the game, but show teams that you're not just going to come over here and you're just going to bully us and push us over and you're going to beat us 7-0 every game.
Exactly.
Like, that might happen some games.
It was a big margin. You're right. And I think garbage time goals are the most important in hockey versus any other, like, garbage time points in the NBA. I think garbage time, like, is really important going into your next game. If you're down 6-1 and there's still like 15 minutes to go, try and cut that to 6-3. Feel better about yourself leaving that. It's still a loss, but feel a little better about yourself. That's pretty much it for me with the NHL. As far as the West goes, I got to say, I've been weirdly entertained by the bottom half of that West division, man, with the Ducks and the Kings. I've been weirdly entertained because they have their moments of actually having competitive games. And it's kind of like 2 tiers in that division. It's like the Avs and the Blues and the Knights. And then it's just like, the Coyotes and Ducks and the Kings and those guys, right?
I was watching the Kings and the Sharks last night, actually. I didn't see the whole game because where we live, that game ends at like 2:30 and I can't be up that late every night. I got to pick and choose with when Colorado comes back on. Some nights I got to stay up till 2:00 and see my boys. But no, it's been interesting just, I think, overall to see, like, the bottom teams play against the bottom teams in like a division like this, or like the North Division, where like sometimes you don't really want to see a game get out of hand. Like, you don't want to see Vegas slap everybody every night, like 5-1 or 4-1 or 3-0, right? It's good to see some competitive games. And I think the lower tier, like, of said like North Division and West Division, you could really get to see some like good hockey games that, you know, might not necessarily have any impact on the standings, but still good hockey. And with the Kings and the Sharks and Minnesota and Anaheim, like, I don't think any of those teams are getting in. I think the top four is pretty much set, so they're just kind of battling to see who's going to get where. I wasn't big on the Coyotes to start, but they've kind of impressed me. I really like what Connor Garland and Christian Dvorak, shout out fantasy players of mine. Won't say the name of my team because we might get demonetized, but
I agree, man. That's the top
really
four
good
right there. That's the top four.
It's pretty set, I think. I think Minnesota's had flashes, but I think this COVID break's really going to fuck them over. And their goaltending, I think at some point is going to hit back.
Their goaltending sucks.
Yeah, it's I think it's been pretty decent though to start. I thought it was going to be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. And Anaheim, I mean, 2 words for them: John Gibson. 2 words that aren't for them: Ryan Miller. You know, I mean, it's a complete different tandem with those 2 guys, and they just don't have your top guys, man. If Maxime Comtois is one of your best goal scorers, you got some problems, man. You got some problems with that team. All right, man. Let's wrap things up. Interesting topics on today's show. I really like that opening topic about the Hall of Fame. We'll try and keep things fresh. If there's anything you guys want us to discuss, feel free to reach out on Instagram. Let us know any topics that you're interested in hearing about, and on Twitter, as well, as you can see right there on the scrolling banner. Sports Mayflower for the Twitter and Mayflower Sports for the Instagram. For Jake, I'm Andrew. Thanks a lot, guys, for listening or watching. We'll see you next time for episode 11.